First of all, just want to say thank you to you, Roberta, and all of Fire Safe Sonoma and the board for allowing me the opportunity to share some information with you today about the proposed fire service sales tax measure. You are absolutely a critical stakeholder in the fire service community here in Sonoma County, and having the opportunity to talk to you and answer any questions that you may have that I can answer is a great opportunity. So thank you for that. I'm here mostly, as Roberta said, today. I'm here as the president of the Sonoma County Fire Chiefs Association, and here to just provide information and education type of information for you. There is a very active campaign that is happening, and if you would like more information about the campaign and other benefits, that can be found at safersonomacounty.org. And with that, I will get started. So you will see on your March 5th ballot, Measure H, which is a proposed fire service sales tax measure. The background for Measure H is fire service leadership was, of course, as many of us were, called to action, definitive action after the 2017 fires of the Nuns and the Tubbs, and then the subsequent years of the Kincaid and the Wallbridge and the LNU, and then the Glass, and the list goes on. So we really started putting efforts together in 2018 to look at what the needs were within the Sonoma County Fire Services arena. We pretty quickly put Measure G on the ballot, and that went in March of 2020. It was placed on the ballot by the County of Sonoma. The Fire Service Working Group did work with the County of Sonoma, CAO's office, Board of Supervisors, Fire Ad Hoc to get this measure on the ballot. It needed 2/3 to pass because it was placed on the ballot by the County of Sonoma. We missed by less than 2%. So the Fire Service Working Group that I just mentioned is a subsection of the Sonoma County Fire Chiefs Association, and was the lead working group for Measure G, and continues to be the lead group for now Measure H. So after Measure G wasn't successful, the need didn't go away. At that point, Measure G, we were estimating about $50 million in additional funding for fire services throughout the County of Sonoma. That need didn't go away just because Measure G didn't pass. So the Fire Service Working Group went back to the drawing board, really, and we started looking at other options and how and when we could put forward a second effort. We really felt strongly that we had one good chance, a good second chance to make something happen. If we were not successful the second time around, it was going to be a huge uphill climb to get a measure passed on a third go around. So we took a lot more time this time, very honestly. I mean, it's been 4 years now since Measure G, and we quite honestly went back to the drawing board and came up with a new strategy. We really worked with our political consultants and others, and came up with, this time on Measure H, that we would attempt to do this through a citizens-based initiative, which is petition-driven. This would only require a 50% plus one to pass instead of the 2/3 threshold. That 2/3 threshold, while we poll, and we've shown through Measure G that we're polling right at 65 or so percent, there just isn't much margin for error. And that 2/3 threshold is just really difficult, especially on a countywide measure, to get across the finish line. So a couple of the negatives that we hear and had heard from Measure G was that there was no sunset clause. and that there was county managed funds. The voters of Sonoma County have a very low trust percentage of the county of Sonoma. And so we responded to that when we designed this measure, the funding would go to each individual agency, fire service agency within the county. And then any countywide money would go to the County Fire Chiefs Association. We've heard the no sunset clause, argument that makes it less likely to pass a tax. But when we're talking staffing, staffing needs aren't going to go away in 5 years or 10 years. We're talking about transitioning a lot of the county from a volunteer-based system to a career system with support for our volunteers to continue as a critical part of our service delivery. Those career positions the need for them are not going to go away in 5 years or 10 years. Neither is the need for funding for new fire station construction or improvement of fire stations. You can't go out and get a loan for a fire station or a bond for a fire station when you've only got a certainty of 5 years or 10 years in which to repay that. So one of the things that we've done this time, and we've done, I think, just a remarkable job with, is we've focused on improved relationships and unity, starting with the fire service. One of I think the failures of Measure G was the fact that the fire service itself, we weren't united and had everyone in support of Measure G. There were still people that were skeptical and not support positions. We were late in getting our labor partners on board with it, and we weren't able to have a campaign. There was literally zero campaign for Measure G. So we knew that was a critical fail and something we needed to improve. So this time we got together, we changed the fire service working group representation. We added a representative of 1401, the firefighters union, and we also added a fire districts association elected representative. Those were two key groups that we needed to be solidly in alignment with and in unity with if we were going to be successful this go around. So that helped. Improved volunteer fire association involvement also helped. And this time, as I mentioned, we have a very strong campaign committee, mostly by Local 1401, but inclusive of all of the local labor unions here within Sonoma County. So again, this process is being managed by the Sonoma County Fire Chiefs Association, though the campaign is a separate campaign committee and expenditure. There was change of allocations. We started with, as we did with Measure G, we started with data-driven analysis through a standards of cover program together with the International Association of Firefighters. That gave us a kind of foundation of where the need was according to response times and deployment standards. We then brought in, through a robust stakeholder process, we brought in each fire chief of a fire department in Sonoma County, along with their labor representative and an elected representative. And we talked to them. We said, hey, here's what our data shows, what our data-driven process shows. Tell us what you need. Do you confirm this, or are we off? What is it that you need to provide the best level of service for your communities right now? And so when we blended those two processes, we came up with our allocation plan. And it does look different than Measure G. We also enhanced our community oversight committee. That's now a committee of 11 that will be citizens of Sonoma County that will be appointed by, legally, there has to be some appointed by the Board of Supervisors. There will be some represented of labor, of the Fire Chiefs Association, community at-large members. The Sonoma County Taxpayers Association has a representative, as well as the Mayors and City Council Members Association will nominate two. The emphasis continues to be primarily an emphasis placed on, through this measure, of adding local firefighters and building fire stations. Again, we are transitioning, especially in the rural areas, away from an all volunteer model than needing to be a combination model. A lot of those stations out in the rural areas are, as many know, are simply barns. They don't have adequate living facilities to support career firefighters and career staffing. So here's the new ordinance. It is titled the Improved and Enhanced Local Fire Protection, Paramedic Services, and Disaster Response Initiative. There are 6 categories within the program: wildfire prevention, preparedness, emergency response, and vegetation management, recruitment and retention of local firefighters, updates to essential equipment and facilities, transfer of funds among designated entities, implementation costs, and countywide expenditures. Some of the new elements. So I already mentioned the governance with the Independent Oversight Committee. And I talked briefly about the allocation plan. A couple of highlights that I did not mention that are on the slide that you can see now is in just a few short years with the economy turning around or continuing to grow, we're estimated now to generate between 60 and 65 million annually that will directly go to the fire service throughout Sonoma County. A key point, I think, especially for this group, is that 10%, fully 10% of that funding is allocated to new vegetation management efforts throughout Sonoma County. As I mentioned, countywide funding will be distributed through the County Fire Chiefs Association this time, not the County of Sonoma. And an important point here on the last bullet point is that any entity that receives funding through this sales tax measure will be required to submit an annual performance audit to the Independent Oversight Committee. So that's the element where there's a little bit of, checks and balances and teeth, if you will, to make sure that entities receiving funding are spending it appropriately. Partnerships and coordination. Again, I can't overemphasize how important this has been for us to get to this point where we are now. Again, it's been our unions, our volunteers, our veg management community led by Fire Safe Sonoma, outreach. We brought the city managers and mayors and council members in early in these efforts to make sure that they understood what we were doing and why, in multiple reach outs, multiple connection points. Fire district elected, taxpayer group, board of supervisors, civics group, business owners, the media. We have gotten very, very strong support this time from all of those groups, or at least a commitment to remain neutral. So all of those it's a much different environment than we were operating in as we reached the finish line with Measure G 4 years ago. All right, countywide benefits. So I know tailored to this group, probably the ones that mean the most is the new vegetation management, and we focused on adding capacity. We know there's a lot of grant programs out there. We also know that there's not a lot of dedicated capacity, especially for public agencies. So one of the things that we came up with was adding a dedicated funding for a dedicated year-round fuels crew. And this would be in the model of the Northern Sonoma County Fire District's current program. It would be run through them. They would have the funding to provide not only the crews, but the oversight of that. We also felt it was really critically important to fund a full-time executive director for Fire Safe Sonoma. We see, as fire chiefs, we see all of the benefits and value that Fire Safe Sonoma lends to our communities, both individually through community wildfire protection plans and helping us get fire safe councils, firewise communities up and running. That support's critical and does a lot of good work right now within our communities, as well as countywide with the countywide CWPP. Seeing a full-time executive director there to help further those efforts. And then really importantly, coordinate the next bullet point that's part of this sales tax measure is adding 7 regional vegetation management coordinators and inspectors with a focus on wildfire prevention. So 7 full-time vegetation management coordinators that will be working in each of the individual fire service zones within Sonoma County under the coordination of the Fire Safe Sonoma Executive Director. And I think what we've got there is a really good opportunity to collaborate, to streamline services and efforts, not duplicate efforts, as well as collectively through relying on the CWPP process to establish priorities for our greater good of the county. Some additional things that I think are important points to emphasize here, and while they've certainly got other duties, we're going to add approximately 200 new full-time firefighter positions through this measure, as well as rebuild or build 30 new fire stations. That adds capacity for vegetation management as well. A lot of those new firefighter positions are going to go in areas that currently don't have full-time staffing and struggle probably to provide defensible space inspections or vegetation management inspections to their community. And I think it's also really important to mention that part of this coordination is also going to be through the County of Sonoma and Steve Mazurchik's office with support of Ordinance 13 and the current partnerships that we have. I know a number of the fire districts have partnerships with the County of Sonoma, and I think those partnerships are going to just be expanded, shall I say, and continue to be emphasized as opportunities to provide that service. But those 200 new firefighters are going to be able to go out there and provide those vegetation management inspection or defensible space inspection services to those communities that may not be able to do that right now. And I think that's really important. Additionally, some additional countywide funding through this measure, and these will all go through the County Fire Chiefs Association, but all REDCOM dispatch fees for fire districts and cities are going to be covered by this measure. That's going to free up money for each of the districts to prioritize in other ways to better serve their communities. Severe weather upstaffing. Many may be aware that for 3 or 4 years after the Nuns and Tubbs fires, the county put one-time funding into a countywide upstaffing fund, and that fund in red flag warning or severe storm situations, the fire service was able to stand up 2 or more strike teams of engines, basically surge capacity, if I can, especially in areas where we were expecting higher winds or more significant impacts from winter storms. And they proved themselves time and again that was of value, of incredible value. Well, the county has not been able to fund that the last couple of years. And so that was something really important that we wanted to get back into the mix. We also have some one-time annual fundings for technology and training enhancements, as well as recruitment and retention. One of the things on the technology side of things and training that we're going to look to do early on in this program is get to a common platform, and I forget the name because it's not my my area of expertise, but it's combining the platform, the technology platform to do the inspections, the same platform that CAL FIRE uses, and bringing that on board to the county so we can share information, and whether it's across the platforms and we can share information or it's the same platform, being able to share that information in either way is really, really important and is going to provide us with the opportunity to not duplicate efforts and really focus in on some of those areas that need the most attention, shall I say. And then lastly, countywide, recruitment and retention. We're going to have to, many fire agencies right now are struggling with recruitment and retention, like we never have in the past. And we recognize that adding 200 new positions, even though it'll be gradual, is going to be a heavy lift. And so there's dedicated funding in there to do recruitment and retention programs and really get that word out that, come work and live in Sonoma County. So those are the countywide benefits. And at this point, I would be open for any questions that anyone may have. But before I go to questions, I'd like to just ask Marshall real quick, because he serves on the fire service working group with me, if he had anything to add before I turn it over to questions.
Let me jump in and request Chief Akre that you stop screen share. That'll open up the screen better for everybody. Thanks.
Absolutely.
And then, yeah, go ahead, Chief Turbeville. And then I want to take questions from the board real quick, and then open it up for questions from all the attendees as well. But I would ask folks to use the raise hand feature.
Yeah, I'll just speak real quick, keep it brief, and I don't need to ask any questions as a board member. The real emphasis here is to put all the money to work. So not to duplicate efforts, work with the Fire Safe Sonoma structure, and specifically for veg management and wildfire risk reduction, to put it to use to get things done to reduce the risk, because it has, as we all know here, domino effects like better insurance, hopefully for people can live more in a sense of calm, that type of stuff. So it's building upon what we currently have, making it better. It's not to say we're not going to go for other sources of funding, such as grants, but it's making something incrementally better that we can then build upon in the future. So that's all I'll say, and I'll help Chief Akre answer questions as well.
Thank you, Marshall. That's an important point that I didn't bring up. My apologies. That we're trying to get work done, and not only through the fuels crew, but through the coordinators. And we fully expect, with having a full-time executive director at Fire Safe Sonoma, as well as 7 regional coordinators, that's added capacity to be able to do things like go after either grants or additional funding sources. So thank you for that reminder, Marshall. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
So board members, any questions from the board real quick before I open it up for everybody? Okay, hearing none. If anyone has a question, go ahead and raise your hand and we'll field your question. You guys got to have some good questions. This is a big deal. Oh, come on. Remember, this is going to be recorded. So ask a question you think somebody else might ask. All right. Well, unless I'm missing something, Marika, can you double check and make sure I don't see anything in the chat either.
I don't see anything in the chat either.
Well, I can talk some more. Maybe it'll generate some questions.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. No, this is great.
Especially if it's going to be recorded for everyone else's knowledge. So these regional, for lack of a better term, fire inspectors, fire prevention folks, however the fire agencies decide to employ them or use them, I see those positions as being the nexus or the community liaison between that area of the county, that fire department, what the community wants, and then working with Fire Safe Sonoma. So we develop grassroots projects that property owners want, that are working together, that are banding together to make something happen. And using the countywide CPP, using Firewise, using whatever planning process it may be to get it out there. Hey, we want to do this project. Not prioritizing it yet, just developing it to get things going. And that inspector, that prevention person will be representing that fire department and saying, yeah, this local government, non-Cal Fire, non-Fire Safe Sonoma Fire Department supports this project. So when we go into project design, project implementation, project prioritization, yeah, everyone knows what's going on. And it's not a situation where we're trying to force a project on a community, which I don't think is a good model. And the motivation, if you will, is going to be that, hey, there's actually now a workforce that can go out and grant, there's still going to be contractors and everything else, but a workforce that can go out and provide a match or do something that fire department knows about, that Fire Safe Sonoma knows about, that then hopefully builds momentum to go after grants or provide a match. And realistically, it's not going to, this 5% of funding is not going to be able to get everything done. So we need to find the ability to increase capacity And so this 5% could be used to do like project management, administer contracts, get more things done. Now, we're focusing on managing vegetation, and it's only because we're not doing funding for defensible space, or structural hardening, but those are just as critically important too. So that's where I see Fire Safe Sonoma really delivering the whole package message. Whereas the sales tax is really more going to focus on trying to get some level of edge management back. So, it's all these pieces trying to bring it together. It's kind of what I've always thought Fire Safe Sonoma should have been. Sorry, Vern, I know you were one of the founding fathers. I got the t-shirt from back in 2002-ish, I think. Should be where everyone comes to this group and there's a comprehensive plan for the whole county and it's all laid out like this project on Sonoma Mountain is going to complement this project down in Kenwood. And everyone sees this big picture of everything going on. So I see it as a great possibility of infusing some funds in here to start this type of process. And where it goes in the future, I just think I'm very optimistic. I think this is a good approach. So with that, I have nothing else.
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback on that, Chief Turbeville, and for Fire Safe Sonoma, I definitely see this as a huge lever, if you will, that we can use to get a lot more work done with, a little bit of money. So for example, just by having Marika on board for the time we've had her, we've been able to leverage. I'm not a paid person, I'm a volunteer, and I'm not looking for this funding to pay me to do this work. So with that said, having Marika on board has allowed Fire Safe Sonoma to bring on AmeriCorps fellows. We brought on we brought on a Civic Spark fellow initially. Then after that, we brought on a Grizzly Corps fellow, learned how to do that. Now, currently, we have 2 Climate Corps fellows that we're using. If we didn't have a full-time person here, a relatively full-time person here to manage that additional staff, we wouldn't be able to get those staff. So those staff we get at a huge discount, if not for no cost. So that's an example of how a full-time executive coordinator can work to benefit the county as a whole by leveraging that position to get more work done. That's just one example. Another example is to increase bandwidth to help folks write grants to get projects funded. Another third example is, as Marshall alluded to, as being like the anchor to identify and prioritize projects in a logical, strategic manner and help find funding to get those wildland fire safety and risk reduction projects funded and the boots on the ground to get the work done. So those are 3 obvious areas where I see Fire Safe Sonoma really using this funding to get staff in here to leverage that position to get a lot of work done downstream. So it's a little cost with a lot of benefit downstream as I see it.
If I can jump in, Roberta, I agree with everything that's been said about this funding. One of the things that, in addition to all that's been said, is government is really good about writing in regulations and enforcing regulations. What I've always felt the government is not good at is explaining the why. I see these 7 people out there, along with Fire Safe Sonoma, to help all the citizens understand the why. Why do you need to do this, and why am I out here banging on your door to cut your weeds? A lot of them get it due to the history of fires in Sonoma County, but there's still a lot of questions out there, especially when it comes to structural hardening. Everybody knows that, just about everybody probably knows you need to cut weeds, but all the components of making that total package is just great, because we need to tell people why are we doing this. And I've been telling Sacramento, the people in the Capitol that are elected, I've been telling them that for years. You write all these great regulations that can save things, but you never tell them why they have to do it.
Yeah, that's the motivator, right? Instructor 1A, 1B, the motivation.
Exactly.